what we've got coming up for you in today's show.
I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about preparation and what you might need to think about before you start writing. You can, of course, and originally this is where it was all about writing on the hoof and just getting those words down, and you can, and that is the idea, and you still do that, but with a little bit of preparation. I feel the writing and NaNoWriMo feel now, because they even offer a prep course.
Welcome to the All Things Books Show, hosted by award-winning best-selling mystery author Dawn Brookes. Publishing has changed beyond recognition in recent years. Join Dawn as she interviews authors, narrators, and many more from across the creative community. This inspiring and informative show is for readers and writers.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the All Things Books Show. If you've not been here before, I'm Dawn Brookes, and I aim each week to talk either myself or with others about anything to do with books, and that can be to do with writing, editing, and reading, and the whole gambit. But this week, I'm going to be talking about writing a novel in a month. Now, for those of you who are familiar with writing, you're going to know immediately that what I'm talking about here is NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writers Month. Now, NaNoWriMo, or National Novel Writers Month, began in 1999, and it was initially to encourage anyone who wanted to write a 50,000 word novel throughout the month of November. So in a month, 50,000 words. Now that works out to 1,667 words per day. So since then, the movement, if you want to call it, or organization, has grown exponentially. So the idea is that you write a 50,000 word first draft within a month. Now this is open to anybody. It can be experienced writers who have been writing for years, or somebody who wants to pen their first novel. Children get involved, teenagers get involved, students get involved. Last year, over 420,000 people participated in NaNoWriMo. That's the ones that the organization knows about. And not everybody registers with the organization. Some people do NaNoWriMo either by themselves or within groups, but don't necessarily register. So they might do it within writing groups. There are some here in Derby, often in an organization here. And I know the university does it because they did it when I was studying for my MA in creative writing. So, as I said, this can be anybody who wants to write a novel within a month. Now, you say 50,000 words, that sounds like a lot, but actually in book terms, that's a short novel. It's not a lot, and it's very achievable if people put enough preparation in advance. And so I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about preparation and what you might need to think about before you start writing. You can, of course, and originally this is where it was all about writing on the hoof and just getting those words down, and you can, and that is the idea, and you still do that, but with a little bit of preparation. I feel the writing and NaNoWriMo feel now, because they even offer a prep course in October for the people to prepare themselves for writing in November. So a little bit of preparation goes a long way, so that a first draft, you're going to still need to do a lot of editing, but if you put some preparation in, the editing will be less arduous in the long run. So let's talk about some of that preparation. So the first thing, obviously, or maybe not be obvious, but it might be good to have a clue what genre you want to write in. So, it just helps. It helps you focus. if you know what genre you want to write in. Now, I'm a cozy mystery writer and crime writer. I've written a few memoirs, but mostly these days my writing is cozy mysteries. So I would immediately know that if I'm going to participate in NaNoWriMo, which I am, but I'm doing it on my own because I'm like those detectives who can't work with anybody. I work better on my own. No, I don't mean it like that. Time and effort means that I just sometimes can work better on my own because I can set aside the time that suits me to do something like this. So yeah, so I know what genre I'm going to write in. So you need to have a think about, I mean, you might already know, I want to write a romance novel. I want to write a historical fiction novel. Now that will need a lot of preparation. I warn you in advance. You might want to write a thriller, police procedural, something psychological, drama, children's book, children's mystery. You might want to write horror. The genres are all out there. Spy thrillers, they're all out there. There are tons and tons of them. It is helpful if you know what genre you want to write in the first place. Okay, so we've got genre. You're gonna nail that down, or you have nailed that down. If you're a series writer, that's brilliant. If not, you've still nailed it down. You know what you want to write. The next thing you need to think about is your audience. And now I know that seems strange, but before you've written a book, but actually, we talk a lot these days about writing to market, and it's not just about making money when you write to market. It's writing something that you know a certain group of readers is going to enjoy, that they're looking out for, that they want to read. So it's useful to know, is your audience, who your audience is. Do they like something clean? Do they like erotica? Do they like, are they really like real adult stuff or clean adult stuff? Are they teenagers? Are they mid-age range of school? So you need to know in advance roughly who might want to read your book. Now, once you've got that, so you've got your genre, you've got your audience. Now you want to nail some other things. You want to nail some characters and a setting before we move on to plot. I mean, you might want to think plot first, but you know, some people do, some people don't. But you set so you want a setting. Where is your novel going to be set? I've got 3 cozy mystery series now. One is set on a cruise ship. One is set with a group of octogenarians who travel on holidays, and sometimes they're on land, sometimes they're on river cruises. And I've got one who's a private investigator. So it's useful if you know where it's going to be. It might be a coffee shop. What country is it going to be? What continent is it going to be set on? Is it going to be in Australia? Is it going to be in India? Is it going to be in Africa? Is it going to be in the US of A, etc.? So useful to know a setting. And then once you know what country, where exactly in that country is it going to be? Is it just a small town thing, big city thing? Is it an international chase, as in sort of Jack Reacher type thing? Is it going to go all over the world? Have a think about some of those things. Where is your setting going to be, and have an idea? And is it going to be a fictional setting, or a fictional setting within a real world setting? Is it going to be a fantasy world? Is it going to be on a spacecraft? Is it going to be on another planet? So all those things, particularly if you're writing fantasy fiction, will need to be ironed out ahead of time, because you want to know a bit about that world that you're going to create. And whether it's on a contemporary fiction novel, historical fiction novel, which takes a lot more research, or a world-building novel such as fantasy or science fiction, then you're going to, or even horror to some extent, then you're going to know need to know a little bit about your world before you start writing. The next thing that's probably quite important, well, that is important, is your characters. You need to think, and I'm going to show you a little bit in a minute. I'm going to take you to a random plot generator so that you can just mess around with a bit of brainstorming or mind mapping, as they call it these days. Just mess around with some plot ideas. So you're going to need characters. Now, if like me, you write mystery, you need a main protagonist, and that protagonist you need to decide, is it going to be a male or a female? That's important for cozy mysteries in particular. Then in mysteries, you're going to need a sidekick. Usually in police procedurals, you have a sidekick as well. In thrillers, you have a main protagonist. So you need to think about this main protagonist and what gender you want them to be, or gender neutral, if that's where you want to take your writing, or it might be something from another planet, something completely made up, like an alien. But you need a main character. In a fantasy novel, you need to know, is it going to be humans, or is it going to be a mixture of humans? But like Lord of the Rings, you've got the little hobbits and such like, and you've got humans as well. So are you going to blend or merge those two worlds, or are you going to go straight down all complete fantasy? Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe also blends two worlds. There's a bit of time travel in there as well, or certainly world travel, and time stands still while the children are in that other world, when C.S. Lewis penned those novels. And so you need to have a little think about what you're going to include there. And as I say, I'm going to show you a random plot generator that you can find online, just as a bit of fun. And I've also got random plot generator apps on my iPad. Now, I don't use any of these to write my books, but if you're stuck for ideas and you've left it to the last minute and you think, oh my word, I want to start on the 1st of November and I need to start writing now, you might want to just do something random, like use a plot generator and pull it within the genre that you want to write about. If you're writing romance, you'll need two main characters, obviously two people who are going to fall in love, and usually the way romance novels are written is that you get points from both points of view, which is another thing we need to think about in a little while, is about your point of view. So you'll need two main characters for a romance novel. And then most novels, and particularly novels that are written in series, will have multiple characters. They'll have one main protagonist with a sidekick, and usually other multiple characters that appear again and again. So it might be worth spending some time thinking about them if you're thinking this might be a first in series. You might also want to think about whether you're going to include an animal in this, or if it's fantasy or horror, is it going to be a sort of demonic animal, something dangerous, or something really friendly like a Wookiee in Star Wars, but can be equally dangerous when it loses its rag? Or is it going to be a normal dog, cat, bird, etc. that you're going to include in your novel? So that's briefly on characters. We've done setting, we've thought about genre, and then you're going to go on to the outline. But let's just look at two pieces of software. And these were within, I didn't know this, these were actually within the NaNoWriMo prep. So I'm just going to share my screen now. So here we are within the random plot generator, and this is on writingexercises.co.uk, called plot generator, and you just have a bit of fun by clicking this. So you click on your main character. So man in his early 20s, very charming. Well, you might want a female. A woman in her late 30s, is that good? Who's uninhibited? That might sound okay to you. It may or may not. So you want a second character, a man in his late 30s. Now, if this is a romance novel, you've immediately got two people in their late 30s, and you can see how they're going to clash. One's uninhibited and one's a bit foolish. So, or there might be a chap in his early 20s. So a man in his 70s. We're still sticking with men at the minute, and I want a woman to go with my woman. Here we go. I don't want a young woman. There's a lot, and this isn't doing it for me because here we are. So a woman in her early 30s who can be quite sensitive. So I might have these two characters as one as the main character and one as the sidekick. So the setting, okay, here we go. Well, I'm an ex-nurse, so the story begins in a hospital. That would suit me down to the ground. Not that I write any hospital mysteries, but it would be okay. It would be something, if I was stuck for something to write in NaNoWriMo, that might be something I could start with. So I could say, yep, story begins in a hospital. Now, a mother hands over the reins of the family business. To me, that doesn't really fit in with starting in a hospital. So I don't like that. A sudden storm blows up. Now, that might be fine. Say it's a small town hospital and there's people on ventilators or whatever, and a storm blows up, or somebody even causes the storm, or it's a fantasy and it begins in a storm, etc., etc. This could be a sort of story about separation. Well, it could be. It's based in a hospital. Could be about madness. It certainly could. Or a countdown to disaster. Now, with the storm and the disaster and the woman working in the hospital or visiting the hospital, that's something you could really go to town on. And then what's my character going to do? No, they're not going to upset people because I want my character to be likable. It could be that they reluctantly become involved in whatever's going on in that place. And that's a fairly standard setting. Let's just have another look at another one called Writer Igniter, and that's at DIYMFA.com. And here you shuffle. So here you might be wanting to write about a male protagonist. It might be a romance. The best man, he finds a baby on the doorstep, sounding a bit like Three Men and a Baby. It gives you a prop here, and it gives you a setting, and it's a busy. As you can see, the man's probably a busy working man in a big city somewhere. So that sets you off with some ideas for where to begin. So that's quite an interesting exercise to do. Whether or not you want to use it to inspire you. Now, when you start writing, you'll need to know what point of view you're going to write in. Now, often with romances, they're written in first person point of view from that person's point of view. So whoever the two people are who are going to fall in love. So let's say it's going to be a man and a woman. So the woman will speak in the first person in her chapter, and then the man will speak in first person in his chapter. If it's going to be a same-sex relationship, the same sort of thing. You would have it in the first person usually. You can write it in third person point of view. In other words, that person's thoughts, basically, which is still their interpretation, but it just allows a little bit more leeway for including things. And then, of course, there's my cozy mysteries. A lot of cozy mysteries are written in the first person from the protagonist's point of view. I write mine in the third person point of view, so because I like to have chapters from other people's point of view. So I have my sidekick, etc. You can go third person omnipotent, which basically means that the story is narrated from somebody from the outside looking in, who can see inside everybody's heads, not just the main protagonist, because if you're writing in the third person point of view, you must be careful not to head hop. So I wouldn't be allowed to see what's going on in somebody else's head. Whereas if I was writing third person omnipotent, I would be able to. Well, I wouldn't be able to, but the narrator would be able to write as if they can see inside everybody's heads. So that's how you get started. Then once you've got a few notes, you've thrashed out your characters, you've thrashed out who they are, how old they are, where they live, what their occupation is, whether they're retired, etc. If they're a monster, who they are from the monster perspective. If they're in a fantasy world, what they are, whether they're human or something else, and what they're going to encounter. So you've got the ideas of those in your head. So you've got all that. Now you want to think, or an alien who's come down to Earth. So now you want to think a bit about plotting just before you start putting pen to paper. Now, there are various ways to plot a novel, and this video isn't going to give me time, and this isn't what this video is about. It's about getting you set for NaNoWriMo, getting in the race, having a think, right, I've got this idea, it's in my head, I've got a few characters, I've got a setting, I'm going to run with it from the 1st of November. So that's what this is about. But a little bit on plotting might help you. Now, there are various ways of plotting. The most, one of the most common is called the 3-act structure. And that was described by a chap called Field in 1979. And the 3-act structure really relates to film and theatre and scenes and TV, and a lot of authors use it for writing books, and it's something I've used in my past 2 books. I've been using the 3-act structure, except I call it the 3B structure, or as L. Brooks, my namesake, except without the E, says he calls it the plot point story, which is basically a 4-act structure. But whether you call it 3-act structure or 4-act structure, even if you're using the 3-act structure, it never made a lot of sense to me, because the first act would be about, it'd be a quarter of the book. The second act would be half of the book. And the third act will be the final quarter of the book. So basically, the second act, to me, I've always split it into 3A and 3B. And a lot of people have done this. And actually, I think that's why Brooks came up with the 4-act structure, because basically it just makes more sense. And let me show you this on a visual graphic. So if you can see in this is a scene chart, or it can be a chapter chart. But basically the bit on this side is the first quarter of the book. So that takes 5 scenes. So that's Act 1. Act 2 would be 10 scenes here, which would take up a half of the book. So that's, by the time you've done Acts 1 and 2, you've got 3/4 of the way through your book, through your novel. And the third act here is another quarter of the book, and it's another 5 chapters or scenes, which however you want to do it, 5, 10, that's only 20 chapters. That wouldn't be enough for me. I write 30 chapter novels at minimum. But you get the idea. And if I could remember where I downloaded this from, because I used to use this before I bought Scrivener, which is a database. I used to use this for just thrashing out my scenes. I extended it, obviously made it a lot bigger. But if I could remember where I downloaded it from, I would give the author a shout out. So if you're that author and this belongs to you, please drop me an email and I will put a link to your article that I read and downloaded this from, and I'll put it in the notes afterwards. So please feel free to contact me. I don't like using other people's work and not acknowledging them. That's just not me. Now, the other way you might want to go about it, and this is a fairly long-winded way, this is the way I used to do it again before I got Scrivener, where on Scrivener you can do all this yourself. Now, this page is my characters, and that's for the 5th book in my cruise ship mystery novel, and it's it doesn't include the main characters because I already know them and thrash them out. And then what I often come up with, and I still do this, but I do it on PowerPoint these days, is I come up with the victim in the middle, and then all the suspects around the outside, and sometimes what their secrets are. And then I would literally pen out a brief plot. Now, obviously, you can go into a lot more detail on plot if you use the 3-act structure, because you want to know what the first part of the book is, your inciting moment, how your protagonist gets involved, they're usually reluctant, etc. So a lot more detail required if you use these plot outlines in their full capacity. Another method is well-known method is the hero's journey, from a book called A Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And what is your typical book using this type of journey is Lord of the Rings. You've got your Frodo and all the others and the heroes, and actually I'd say there's definitely more than one hero, but obviously it all depends. The whole saving of that world depends on Frodo. So getting to the end of his journey. So that's about the hero's journey. There's a female version of that called The Heroine's Journey by Maureen Murdoch for female quests and screenwriters have used them for many years, using the hero's journey. There are other ways, and I'm really not going to go into detail on these, but it might be another video for another day. Something called Writing from the Middle, which is by J. Scott Bell, where he suggests that you start your novel from the middle. Every book, actually, whether you plan it this way or not, has something J. Scott Bell calls a mirror moment in the middle, where the character is faced with a huge dilemma. This is also described in the 3-act structure, just in a different way, as the plot thickens, as they say. But the character actually has to face up to something, and it brings about a change in that character, quite an important change usually, and that propels the novel forward. And also it gives you something to work back from, and he talks about writing a novel from a middle. Now, I'm a linear writer. I could not do it. I always have this mirror moment in the middle of a novel. Amazingly, I think it's inherent in a writer's makeup that once you start writing, it comes naturally. But his book is well worth a read. There's another thing, and I'll go into one more, which is called Writing into the Dark by Dean Wesley Smith, otherwise known as pantsing, discovery writing, or exploratory writing. So basically, writing into the dark means, and this was how NaNoWriMo was set up from the beginning, is that you sit down, you've got your pen and paper, and you just write. So you write those 1,667 words per day, and by the end of the 30, you allow the creative side of your brain to function and work, and you create this wonderful masterpiece that needs a lot of editing, but it's still a great way to write. And I started my writing in this way, and I still write in this way, but I would say I'm a little bit in betweener now, or plantser as it's known, and I use a bit of plotting and a bit of pantsing. So, and many authors do actually, because even if you plot really well, often your story can change as you go along. I'm just going to work out now. So if you want to take part in NaNoWriMo, you can sign up at the website. I'll just give you that now. It's nanowrimo.org. You can sign up to join in with many thousands of others. You can join various groups in NaNoWriMo. It's a not-for-profit organisation. It's completely free to take part. So you can sign up, or you can search for a writers group in your area and see if they're taking anybody. There are Facebook groups where I'm sure people will be doing NaNoWriMo. There will be other organisations. There will be libraries sometimes open up to allow people to go in and write throughout NaNoWriMo. Maybe not 7 days a week, but certainly a few times. Sometimes you might need to write on your own every day and then meet up with other people just once a week, just to motivate you and inspire you to keep going. Now, let me tell you now that not everybody finishes NaNoWriMo, and if you don't, they're 50,000 words in a month, and if you don't beat yourself up. Just keep writing. Try and develop a daily writing routine that works for you. Now obviously that's important from the beginning. If you can, plan ahead. Start thinking now, what is the best time? How fast do I write, type, or dictate, whichever way you want to do it? How fast do I do that, and how long will it take? So what time, when can I fit that time slot in to do it? You might want to do it in phases. It might be that what works better for you is, I think I write about 1,000 words an hour, sometimes more if I'm really on a roll. So for me, this would take 2 hours probably of my day, or probably an hour and a half if I'm into the story and I've plotted it well and I know where I'm going and I've written scene charts and such like. Then I could do it a lot quicker. So you could get to the 50,000 by the end of the month. If you don't want to write every day and you're a Monday to Friday person, then there's 22 working days, if my calculation is correct. There are 22 working days in November, so you would need to write 2,272.72 words. So 2,273 words a day on average. If you wanted to work just Monday to Friday and not include weekends. Alternative, if you could only do weekends, then you'd make the calculation depending on the weekends. Some days you might write more. You might be somebody who writes a lot one day and not so much the next. Whatever works for you. But I think the whole idea of NaNoWriMo is that you develop a writing routine. So if you can stick to a routine, start writing and stick to that routine, then that is much better and tends to work better for you in the long run. Anyway, all I can say is happy NaNoWriMo. Enjoy the month of November. I'll try and give you some feedback on how I got on in my NaNoWriMo, although I am finished. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to say. If you're already on a work in progress, don't be bound by the rules of NaNoWriMo. If you've already written 20,000 words and your target is 60,000 or 80,000, whatever, use NaNoWriMo to finish what you've started. Or if you haven't started, but you want to write an 80,000 word novel, write your 50,000 words in November and then try and develop a writing routine that will take you through to finish that 80,000 word novel. So it doesn't have to be, I have to create a 50,000 word draft. Yes, you do, but it can be part of something else. You can cheat a little, is all I'm saying, but I don't know whether I'm allowed to give you permission to do that, but I would cheat a little, and it's up to me. At the end of the day, your writing life, do it the way you want to, but develop a writing routine. Enjoy the month of November. I'd love it if you came back at the end of November and wrote in the comments, or even right through the month, I've done this, Dawn. I've got to 2,000 words, or I've got to 50,000 words by the end of the month. I'd love to see that. That would be wonderful. Please do write in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, like the video, please subscribe to the channel. It all helps with finding an audience and helps me to keep this channel going. And share it if you've liked it. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.